Okay. Okay, this is part 6. Camille's baptism. The winter coming-of-age ceremony came and went while I was hunkered down in my workshop, brewing away. The spring baptisms were soon to follow, and of course I was very excited. Camille was going to attend this year, which meant I would finally have a chance to see him. I shall perform this spring's baptism, I announced. Are we trying to keep you out of the public eye? Melkor asked. I performed the winter coming-of-age ceremony without issue, so you can leave this to me as well. Using Facestone's Pact of Mana, Melkor had performed the winter ceremony to perfection. It was a great achievement, and seeing how far he had come made me proud to be his big sister. But that didn't mean I'd give up on the spring baptisms. I needed to be the one to bless Camille. Melkor, could you let me have this one, I asked. This will be the last ceremony I perform in Ehrenfest. I wish to make it a special one. Your last ceremony, he echoed. That's right, I wish to bless Ehrenfest's commoners one last time before my departure, I said, adopting the most saintly facade I could muster in my attempt to convince him. I did the same thing with Hartman and then with Sylvester, which secured me permission to oversee the ceremony as the High Bishop. It saddens me to think that this is the last time we will address you in your ceremonial robes, Monica sighed. She and Nicola were wearing melancholic smiles as they helped me change for today's ceremony. It saddens me as well, I said, watching their practice movements, especially as you both just finished learning how to dress me. For a time, Monica and Nicola had struggled to get used to my new, more mature body, but because I needed to keep wearing these ceremonial robes while waiting for my normal robes to be altered, they had quickly adapted to the circumstances. Now their hands move without the slightest hesitation. Is Feline dressed yet? I asked. Wilma is dressing her for us. Lady Feline is the Apprentice Blue Shrine Maiden now, so she should be leaving for the chapel soon. Indeed, now that Feline was operating as an Apprentice Blue, she needed to participate in spring prayer. I'd given her the ceremonial robes I'd worn during my own tenure as an apprentice, and alterations had since been made so that they were the perfect length for her. They were still emblazoned with the Rosemine Workshop's crest, but Feline hadn't seemed to mind. In her words, because she was no longer with her house, she thought of wearing her parent protector's crest. The thought of wearing her protector's crest was actually quite comforting. I just hoped that it would help keep her safe. There, Monica said, everything is ready. Let us go, then. Fran guided us to the chapel. Because I was so much taller now, I was actually able to keep up with him. But that didn't stop him from looking over his shoulder to check on me. He gazed down at where my head would once have been, then noticed his mistake and corrected himself. It would seem that I no longer need to slow down for you, he said with a sad smile. It was a simple remark at face value, but I grasped the double meaning. Not only was I taller now, but I would also be leaving Ehrenfest soon. Oh, God dang it. Freaking making me emotional already. My eyes started to water and my nose burned. I really don't want to go. Today is your final ceremony, Lady Rosemine. Come see how much the temple has improved because of you. Because of me? Well, duh. I mean, heck, the freaking orphanage has done a complete 180 since you became part of the temple. Fran stepped outside the chapel and slowly turned to me. The Grey Priest, once abandoned in the orphanage, had been given work in the printing and papermaking industries. Work that will play a crucial role in the future of our duchy. Visiting commoners are more sincere with their prayers, for they know they will receive true blessings. Nobles come and go without batting an eye, though they each have their own motivations. And of course the orphanage has managed to produce its own nobles with Dirk and Bertram. Our fortunes do not end there, however. Having Lord Melkor, a member of the Archducal family, as the next High Bishop, will ensure the temple's safety for years to come, and even now Ob Ehrenfest searches for ways to protect the temple and the lower city. Protecting the temple had previously fallen to Ferdinand, a noble forced into the temple by Veronica and a former commoner, respectfully. That this duty was now falling to one of the Archduke's biological sons was immensely significant, and according to Fran, it had only been possible because of the changes I'd made. The High Bishop shall not enter, came a voice from the chapel. Fran opened the door for me, then gave me a calm smile as I proceeded inside with my Bible held in my chest. The young children were all staring at me in shock, probably because they'd heard so many rumors about the High Bishop being tiny. Yep, not anymore. It was fun to imagine what must have been running through their heads. As I continued toward the stage, I couldn't help noticing that the children were so much shorter than me now. They all seemed so tiny and adorable, it really made it clear how much I'd grown. Lady Rosemine, Hartman said, then smoothly held out his hand to me. I was tall enough now that I could climb the steps on my own, but I didn't want to be awkward. I gave him the Bible, then took his hand and let him escort me on stage. Ah. There was a stand in place behind the lectern, but I no longer needed one. Hartman discreetly moved it while putting the Bible in place, his lips curved into a half smile. Remembering what Fran had said to me, I paused to take in my surroundings. Things really had changed. Melkor, his retainers, and Feline were all clad in blue. The apprentice Blues now attending the Royal Academy were free to join the Knight's dormitory in the castle, yet they had chosen to stay in the temple for comfort and to obtain more divine protections. While the great priests who had monitored the children with hard expressions during my baptism were now standing tall. Even those due to be baptized stood out to me. Rather than lazing about and seeming entirely uninvested, they were facing straight ahead with tense looks on their faces. I could already sense how much the general perception of religious ceremonies had changed. Now, where's Camille? It was customary for the richer children to stand at the front, so he was probably further back. I used mine to enhance my vision, and mere moments later, over there, that's him! He had the same blue hair as Dad and was unmistakably boyish, yet his facial features reminded me a lot of a young Thule. It hadn't taken me very long to spot him, since he was standing with all the other kids from his neighborhood. He also had glossy hair and excellent posture, both owing to his role as an apprentice of the planting company. Looks like Mom used dyed cloth instead of relying on embroidery. Baptismal clothes were traditionally embroidered around the edges, but Mom had opted to use her dyed cloth instead. This promoted our Dutchie's new dyeing method while also emphasizing the connection between Camille and me. Mom must have wanted to make it easier for me to recognize Camille since I'd never properly met him. I'm sure that using dyed cloth in place of embroidery is going to spread, just not in the way that Mom expects. The practice will no doubt become popular among mothers who couldn't embroider very well. If I were them, I would desperately cling to it, using excuses like, I'm not being lazy, this is a new trend. Even those working for the Archduke's daughter are using it. At last it was time for the ceremony to begin. I read from the Bible, taught the children a prayer, and then granted them a blessing. O Flutrain, goddess of water, hear my prayers. May you grace these newly born children with your blessing. May those who offer their prayers and gratitude be blessed with your divine protection. The green light that shot out was slightly larger than usual, but there was no helping that. Besides, it was several times better than the explosion I'd accidentally created at the end of Thule's coming-of-age ceremony. Repression wasn't good for the body. If anyone asks, I'll give the same excuse that I gave Melkor. I wanted to give a huge blessing as a final gift to Ehrenfest's commoners. The doors were then opened, and the children started filtering out of the chapel. I could see my family waiting outside. There was Dad, Mom, Thule, and for some reason, Les. They were all staring at me in shock. Of course they were. They were never expecting you to get that tall that quick. Apart from Thule, who had already seen me since my sudden growth spurt. She had a triumphant look on her face that seemed to say, see? It's just as I told you. So they were doubting her, essentially. Doubting that she had gotten taller. Mom and Dad continued to stare at me for a moment, then their surprise gave way to overjoyed smiles. They didn't see my unexpected growth as disturbing. They were just glad to see that their daughter was doing well. A wave of emotion spread through my chest. You didn't all need to come all the way here, Camille exclaimed, sounding embarrassed as he ran over to the others. Let's make a remark of some kind about it not being any trouble, then gave Camille a pat on the head and waved at me. I resisted the urge to wave back and instead broadened my smile. They're so far away, so far away. I understood that I couldn't join my family in celebrating Camille's baptism, but still, watching them made me feel so terribly lonely. And as soon as those doors close, even those fleeting interactions will be a thing of the past. She won't be able to do that later. Once she moves to the sovereignty or wherever the heck she goes, it ain't going to happen anymore. They're not going to let it. Moving to the sovereignty will mark the end of these little moments. I would struggle just to see my family. Once the children were all outside, the chapel doors were shut. I couldn't suppress a heavy sigh. Your hand, Lady Rosamund. Hartman knew about my family in the lower city. That was why he'd stayed with me until the end. We not saying a word. Thank the Lord, because you would think that if he didn't know, he would have been the first one to be suspicious. Okay, he seems kind of like Ferdinand in that regard. And the guy's obsessed, of course. So he, of course, is going to pay every attention to every little detail about her when she does and everything. I took his outstretched hand, and together we descended from the stage. Outside the chapel, my knights were waiting in a line with stern looks on their faces. Cornelius alone took a step toward me. Lady Rosamund and Ordinons arrived from the castle. The archducal family is holding a meeting about Ehrenfest's defenses, including their plans for spring prayer. You and Melkor have been asked to attend. You are to bring one guard, one scholar, and one attendant each. It seemed that I wouldn't have time to process the end of my final ritual and the loss of yet another connection to my family. I turned to Melkor and we both exchanged nods. I would need to think carefully about whom to leave behind to ensure that the temple remained safe in my absence. We couldn't risk exposing it or the lower city to danger right now. Cornelius, I shall take you, Hartman, and Lasletta with me to the meeting, announced. Daniel, Angelica, Matthias, and Lorenz will remain here in case they are needed, while Feline will serve as the orphanage director. Summon Lenore and Judith to guard me on my way to the castle. Yes, my lady. Melkor and I instructed the knights we weren't bringing with us to guard the temple while we were away. We also told them to remain in close contact with the knights stationed at the gates. Wilma, Monica, and Niccolo repaired to the orphanage director's chambers for Feline while also getting everything ready for spring prayer. I will contact Daniel if something happens on my end, I said. Everyone coordinate sending ordinances to the lower city gates. If you need to contact the orphanage, send an ordinance to Feline. Should an incident of some kind require the orphans to evacuate, remember our drills. Understood. Defense meeting. As I arrived at the castle, Audley, Lazletta, and Grisha came to greet me. Welcome back, Lady Rosamund, they said in chorus. Thank you all, I replied. Are Roderick and Clarissa in the library by chance? Audley giggled and said, Yes, my lady, Clarissa is diligently making fey paper for you while educating Roderick. His brewing skills seem to have improved considerably under her tutelage. It certainly helps that he obtains so much mana through compression, but experience is important as well. Clarissa had apparently said to Roderick, Since you're Lady Rosamund's first name sworn, you at least need to be skilled enough to do brewing work for her before she leaves for the sovereignty. By the sound of things, she was putting him through the ringer. I also spent a lot of time in the library with Clarissa, Judith noted. She made me brew a lot, too. As it turned out, Clarissa had drilled Judith until the young knight had mastered making her own offensive magic tools, largely weapons she could throw or shoot. Clarissa's educational philosophy was deeply rooted in Dunkelfelger's customs, and it sounded extremely harsh. Still, I said, Clarissa has a point that Roderick will need to be proficient in brewing before he moves to the sovereignty. I think it's also important for you to be able to make your own weapons. I already had my hands full, so to be honest, I appreciated what Clarissa was doing. The meeting will take place in the afternoon, Lazletta informed me. Do you plan to take your usual retainers? I shook my head. I want you to attend such meetings with me from now on, Lazletta. It seems only logical since you plan to accompany me to the sovereignty. In the past, Audley had accompanied me as an arch attendant. She received this news with a smile, then nodded and said, Yes, that would be wise. In the meantime, Grisha and I will continue preparing for your departure. Your belongings here at the castle have already been packed and are ready to be loaded as soon as the royal family sends word. How are things faring in the temple and your library? If there's anything else you wish to bring to the sovereignty, it should be brought to the castle soon. The time had come for me to close my temple's hidden room and move my luggage to the castle, just as Ferdinand had done before me. Despite how busy I was, the preparations for my move were still going smoothly. Roderick's and everyone else's brewing has diminished our supply of ingredients in the temple workshop, I said. Given the circumstances, rather than replenish them, I shall move what remains to my library's workshop. As for the rest of my belongings in the temple, I intend to leave the majority of them to Feline, but most of the items to be moved are rather large indeed. My luggage to be moved from the temple included mattresses, shelves, and the like, things I would need until the very last moment. Moving them wouldn't be easy, but at least I wouldn't be bringing much with me. How much luggage will need to be taken from the library? I wrote a letter to Ferdinand asking how many books and ingredients I should take with me to the sovereignty. The Ob sent it to him alongside some food, so now I'm waiting for his response. How much progress has been made with my clothes? Will they be ready in time for the Archduke conference? Audley nodded. The clothes that everyone's personnel were rushing to complete were coming along nicely and now needed to be fitted. As we do not know what might be decided during the meeting this afternoon, let us arrange a date afterward. Certainly. By the time we arrived at the meeting room with our retainers, the atmosphere was already very tense. The archducal couple, their retainers, and the higher-ups of the Knights Order all wore stern expressions. Ah, there you all are, Sylvester said. Rosamund, did you leave some of your guard knights in the temple? Of course, I replied. We both did, didn't we, Melkor? He smiled and nodded. Rosamund left 4 knights. I only left 3, but Nicholas told me he would join them in guarding the gates, since he's an apprentice knight as well. Karlstedt, who was standing in his usual position behind Sylvester, received this news with a slightly relieved smile. Upon hearing about my disappearance, Nicholas had apparently begun to search for a new protector. In the process, he had spent a lot of time working with Melkor's guard knights, whom he knew from their time together in the temple. I worried that I'd failed Nicholas as his older sister, but since my move to the sovereignty was set in stone, and Cornelius still viewed him with suspicion, it was probably for the best that Melkor was helping him in my stead. Now, let us discuss Ehrenfest's defenses, Sylvester said. He explained that Georgine likely knew of a way to steal our foundation, that he suspected she would make her move around spring prayer, and that he had already finished devising a plan with the Knight's Order. Wolfrid was first to respond. Father, my retainers who participated in those meetings gave me the same warnings, but is this information truly reliable? Sylvester glanced in my direction and shook his head. I won't reveal my source, nor can I provide any concrete evidence, but I consider the information highly trustworthy. There's also no mistaking that Arensbach, or rather Georgine, is targeting Ehrenfest. Matthias's intelligence made that clear a long time ago. Georgine had apparently mentioned taking Ehrenfest's foundation while visiting Gerlach's summer estate. Our Bible had then been stolen during the autumn that same year, so we had responded with the winter purge, executing those who were name sworn to her en masse. It seems safe to assume that we had quashed her plans at least once. Sylvester continued, crushing her agents here in Ehrenfest and wrecking her information network dealt a heavy blow to her, I would say. Then, last winter, we spread word through the Royal Academy that Rosamund had taken ill and returned to Ehrenfest, which we believe put Georgine on guard and made her unable to act. I could see that being true. Now that Georgine's intelligence network was in tatters, she was probably having to rely on Ahrensbach students for information about Ehrenfest. Trying to find out whether the news of my return was true or would have delayed her considerably. Georgine's attack would most likely come before the Archduke Conference, before Ferdinand can marry into Ahrensbach, Sylvester informed us. To appease a royal decree, he was moved into a room in the duchy's western building. This has made it much harder for him to keep track of my sister. Something is sure to happen before he marries Detlinde and starts operating as a full member of Ahrensbach's archducal family. Nobody else spoke, but we all wore very stern expressions. Next, defensive positions. As the Ob, I'll guard the Foundation itself. Karstedt and a section of the Knights Order will focus on protecting the city as a whole. Bonifacius and another section of the Knights Order will stand ready to aid the Knights of any provinces when enemies are spotted. The Gabes provinces bordering Ahrensbach had already been warned of the coming danger. They were being highly cautious and were so eager to know what was happening and whether anyone suspicious had appeared that they were gathering intel even from commoners. Smart moves. If something does happen, Sylvester said, you will all need to take charge of your guard knights and assist with the defense. Florencia and Charlotte will guard the castle, Wolfried the noble's quarter, and Melchior the temple in the lower city. So the men won't be the only ones leading knights into battle, Charlotte asked uneasily. I expected to provide support, but not to join the fighting. Sylvester gave her a serious look. Yes, Charlotte, that goes without saying. You're an Archduke candidate who strives to become the next Ob, aren't you? During times of war, an Ob must take charge and join the fray. There was one job that an Ob couldn't afford to delegate, defending their duchy's foundation. Anyone who entrusted their foundation to someone else would instantly lose their right to rule. So one could consider it an Ob's most important duty. An Ob who can't protect her foundation doesn't deserve to rule, Sylvester said plainly. What do you think your guard knights are for? Use them to defend our duchy. Charlotte fell silent for a moment, then she nodded and said, Yes, father. Seeing their exchange reminded me of something important. I'll need to fight when gathering I needed to fight when gathering Jariv ingredients and playing dinner against Dunkelfelger, so in a sense I was already used to battle. It didn't surprise me that Charlotte, who had never fought in or undergone knight training before, was taken aback by this new duty being thrust upon her. This is probably another reason why men are preferred as Obs. Charlotte had never even touched a blade, so I could see why she hadn't embraced the upcoming battle as readily as Wolfried, who had been training with the knights since he was little. He had already discussed the city's defenses with his knights and started running drills, so he knew how to coordinate with the knights' order to defend the nobles' quarter. You haven't explained what I'm going to do, I said. That's because I can't include you in our plans, Sylvester replied honestly. If you're here when it counts, I want you to fill in any gaps we might have overlooked. Is that all? To be frank, we have no idea when the royal family might order you to the sovereignty. Your future's so uncertain that I wouldn't even let the others involve you in our plans for spring prayer. Your retainers have complained that they are spending so much time making offensive magic tools that they haven't been able to prepare for your departure properly. I want you to focus on that. I nodded my understanding. Being able to protect Ehrenfest was important, but so was being ready to join the royal family whenever they decided to summon me. I discussed this with Adelaide this morning. We should have everything ready by the end of the Archduke Conference, I said, and although I appreciate your consideration, I want to know what I should do in the event of an attack. At this rate, I'll just blunder about and cause more problems, don't you think? If we did end up being attacked, which seemed very likely, then I wouldn't be able to sit back and continue preparing for my departure. I wanted a role to play. I need instructions, I concluded. Do I ask the royals for help? Do I join the battle? Give me something to do. You sure are brave, huh? Have you always been such a warrior at heart? Sylvester asked, furrowing his brow at me. Unlike my sister Charlotte, I wouldn't hesitate to charge into battle. Well, I mean, that's kind of a given, considering that you freaking joked out Besenwatst. Helped them fight in during the attack on Spring Prayer, back when Sylvester had joined you guys, and then the whole thing with Dunkelfelger, and going after and helping Charlotte and everything. Kind of a given that you would be fighting. Father, she's been like this for a very long time, Wolfried sighed. We're even starting to wonder if she shares Dunkelfelger's complete and utter obsession with Ditter. Wolfried, I exclaimed, don't even joke about that. Look, I understand that each of these matches was for a good cause, but you're playing treasure-stealing Ditter against them every single year. You're not even part of the Knight Course, nor do you spend much time at the Royal Academy to begin with. How many other Archduke candidates can you say that about? No, he's right, I can't argue. Alright, Sylvester said, waving a hand at us both. Rosamund, if you're willing to lead your retainers into battle and the attack does end up happening during spring prayer, then I want you to cover for whoever's circling the Central District. A crucial part of spring prayer was traveling around the Central District with our chalice, so Wilfred, Charlotte, and Melkor were going to take turns. I would remain in my library and at the castle preparing for my move, but in the event of an attack, I would need to take the place of whoever was absent. As you will, I said. How are the offensive magic tools coming along? As you advised, we're having the knights and students make rejuvenation potions alongside our scholars, Sylvester replied. Ehrenfest had managed to gather as many ingredients during the Archduke Conference and the Royal Academy term that there was no risk of us running out. I also sent word to all the Geebs, telling them to prepare for battle, and what do you know? Even the retired elders have been doing some real impressive work. Wow, that's good to hear. I really hope the Lions Kings are... the Lions Kings are most likely the most prepared, because they know that Georgine is from Ahrensbach now, so, and the fact that her mother was Gabriel... No, her mother wasn't Gabriel. Her grandmother was Gabriel. I'm sorry. Her grandmother was Gabriel. So, of course, they have an even bigger reason to keep her out of Ehrenfest. So, yeah. They're going to be the most prepared to do battle. The elders had apparently told the young knights which traps had worked best during the dinner games of old and the best times to use them, and the generational gap had closed considerably as a result. A greater sense of camaraderie had also blossomed in some provinces as the Lives Gangs and the nobles of the former Veronica faction now had a greater threat looming over them. This is the perfect opportunity to unite Ehrenfest, I said. People are always more likely to come together when they have a common enemy. A threat to the Duchy's foundation transcended disputes between factions and generations, and thanks to the Winter Purge, there was no longer any nobles' names sworn to Georgine and Ehrenfest. I hope not. It helped that some members of the former Veronica faction hadn't been deemed guilty by association and were now swearing their loyalty to the Archducal family. As we knew, some had even given their names. Oh, right, Wilfred turned to look at me. Rosamund, I was told you've been making complex magic tools of some kind. Have you finished them? I gave a proud smile and puffed out my chest. Indeed, I made 3 shield mills to defend the Cyber's gates. They are already in place, but for the sake of preserving mana, they have not yet been activated. I'd wanted to make the 3 shield mills red, blue, and yellow, taking inspiration from the old Super Sentai Rangers, but Lazy had prepared their fur and chosen 3 pastel colors instead, pink, aqua, and cream. The shield mills were very cute in their ribbon and lace-covered uniforms, but that cuteness strongly contrasted with their combat potential. It was a little surreal seeing them standing with the knights and priests at the temple's gate. Malkor's and my knights have been given magic tools to activate them, so have the Grey priests standing guard, I explained. The shield mills use the same counterattack magic circles carved into Ferdinand's charms, so they should be excellent defense assets. Rose, mine? Wait, what? Ferdinand? Wait, what? Is Ferdinand here? Ferdinand? How did you get here? 2? What are you doing here? 3? You're in for a shock. Rosemine's an adult now. Physically, too. Oh boy, where did you come from, dude? His voice had suddenly echoed through my mind. I covered my ears, my eyes darting every which way as I tried to gauge what was happening. For a moment, I thought I was simply imagining it. But then a bright rainbow light swallowed me whole. Wait, what? Danger beheld. Where am I? In the blink of an eye, my surroundings had changed. Wilfred and Charlotte had been sitting opposite me a moment ago, but now they were nowhere to be seen. Wait, what? What's going on? Rosamund didn't touch the name-sworn stone, did she? So, he's not name-sworn to her, so what's going on? How do they even have a connection? This is a mana replenishment hall, isn't it? I recognize this pure white room, the globular object floating in its center, and the complex patterns and characters spinning around it. Lord Ferdinand cried a high-pitched voice. Lord Ferdinand! I turned instinctively and saw a blonde girl rush across the room, her face blanched with horror. Oh, Letizia! Oh! So this wasn't intentional, okay. She was older than I remembered, but I immediately recognized her as Letizia. She came to a stop before Ferdinand, who had dropped to his knees. He was clutching his chest and coughing violently. Ferdinand, what the heck is going on? I sprinted over as well. Getting to him was easy enough, but when I reached out to help him, I couldn't see my hands. No matter what I did, I wasn't able to interact with him or Letizia. It almost felt like I was watching a movie. I called out, but they didn't react at all. It was like they didn't know I was there. Well, then who called out to you? Okay, now I'm very confused. Ferdinand took something from his potion belt, stuck it in his mouth, and held out the small cage containing his name stones. His hands were trembling, sweat dripped down his forehead. Give this to Justice, he said, struggling to get the words that tell him to go now. Letizia accepted the cage, now white as a sheet, then ran away. She must have left the hall. I couldn't see her anymore. Uh-oh. Oh, he gave it to her so they wouldn't die, essentially. Because if the person who has the name-sworn stone dies, then the name-sworn are die too. Uh-oh, that's not good. He anticipates that. Now alone, Ferdinand collapsed fully. He couldn't even kneel anymore. He just lay there making no attempt to get up. Ferdinand! I wanted to heal him, to give him the medicine he needed, but there was nothing I could do. His face twisted in pain. He must not have known that I was watching him. He grunted and clutched at his chest, only to grab a fistful of his clothes. On closer inspection, there was a faint rainbow light glowing at his bosom. It wasn't long before it opened. It spread to cover his entire body. Wait, isn't that from the charm I gave him? Really? I couldn't actually see the charm, but the glowing mana enveloping him was my own. That much was instinctively clear to me. The faint light spilling out of my charm and enveloping him seemed to be the only thing keeping Ferdinand alive. Someone, anyone, hurry up and save him! There was nothing I could do but watch. It was agonizing. Ferdinand was taking short, shallow breaths when footfalls resounded through the hall. He recoiled at the sound, still grasping his chest, and gracelessly struggled to sit up. Though he managed in the end, his breathing still worried me. He didn't even have it in him to brush away the hair clinging to his sweat-covered forehead. I turned to the source of the noise, keeping half an eye on Ferdinand, and saw Detlinde leisurely approaching. She was wearing a long silver shawl that covered her entire body. Ferdinand was clearly in a terrible state, but she sauntered across the room as if she didn't see him at all. Her heels clocking with each step, she exuded not even a trace of concern. But why? Her complete lack of shock or panic made my stomach turn. She must have done this to Ferdinand. Stop right there. Don't you dare get any closer to him. You can't really do anything because you're not there. You're just seeing it. It's like a vision. But why? Is it because of the charms you gave him, or because he's possibly name-sworn to you at this point? I don't know. I stood protectively in front of Ferdinand, trying to block Detlinde's path, but it was pointless. She slid right through me. It only further proved that I wasn't actually here. Strange, Detlinde said, her brow slightly furrowed. Lord Leonzio said the poison was instant, that it would immediately turn you into a face stone. So why are you still alive? This is terribly inconvenient for me. Her dark green eyes contained nothing but scorn. Did she just say what I think she said? Tell me, did the poison truly reach you, Detlinde asked? You do appear to be weakened, so perhaps you simply did not inhale enough. Or did you have an antidote ready in your mouth? Letizia was supposed to poison you, then I would merely discover your face stone, but alas, you have somehow managed to ruin my scheme. I think it was all going so well until now. Such a shame. She placed a hand on her cheek, then stared quizzically at Ferdinand. You know, I did promise Lord Leonzio that I would return Lanzanov's face stone. Lanzanov's face stone? What? Coupled with a disturbing look on Detlinde's face, those two words gave me goosebumps. She had just declared that she didn't acknowledge Ferdinand as a human being. Based on what she'd said, I could also guess that this Leonzio person was from Lanzanov. Know this, Lord Ferdinand, your secrets have been revealed to me. You are a failure meant to be turned into a face stone and returned to Lanzanov before your baptism. A seed of Adalgisa, was it? How does it feel to know that your mother did not deem you worthy of even becoming a face stone? How did she find that out? Robot, did you reveal this to them? Oh, God. Smack this guy. I want to smack them all. I really do. Smack some sense into them. Ferdinand was desperately trying to stay calm despite his ragged breathing and the triumphant grin bearing down on him. But the truth was clear to see. His past, a matter so sensitive to him, was being callously trampled on. Detlinde continued, Oh, how much it would embarrass me the next Zent to be engaged to such a creature. That is why I must be rid of you before our star binding. Mother gave me her blessing. In fact, she devised this whole plan for me. None of this made any sense. In accordance with the royal decree, Ferdinand was continuously downing rejuvenation potions to save Arensbach from its mana crisis. A duchy's archducal family was too small to manage on its own. How was Arensbach going to survive without the one person keeping it standing? You cannot become the Zent, Ferdinand groaned. Detlinde just laughed. You might not be aware, but I already know where the Grutushite is. Lord Leonzio told me. I shall obtain it with him at my side. Then once I am the Zent, I shall welcome him as my consort. No matter how much you love me, we cannot live together. Dude, did you not realize by now that he doesn't love you? If he loved you, he wouldn't have been treating you with all this. Spread across Detlinda's face was a smile brimming with optimism. I didn't know whether it was because she had come of age or because she was dressing up for Leonzio, but her makeup was laid on much thicker than when she'd attended the Royal Academy. Her curved red lips seemed garish to me. You are an Ob, Ferdinand gasped. You died at the Foundation. You cannot become a Zent. It was not I who died at Arensbach's Foundation. It was my sister, meaning she is the Duchy's current Ob. I am this country's next Zent. Remember, I saw no reason to waste my time. Detlinda cackled, then placed a hand over her mouth and sneered down at Ferdinand. Once I take the throne, I shall nullify the decree of the previous Zent, and return my elder half-brother to our Duchy's archducal family. I will also be able to return my uncles who have Benedicta as their successor. Arensbach will want for nothing. Ferdinand wasn't the only one without a place in Detlinda's future. Letizia was also absent. It was plain to see that she was in danger. I didn't know how they managed to manipulate her, but she will receive the blame for killing Ferdinand. Mother has made all the preparations, Detlinda continued. I do not understand why she desires a backwater duchy like Ehrenfest, but no matter. In her words, her goals will be much easier to accomplish once you are out of the picture. She is awaiting my ordinance as we speak. Is this a future thing, or is this... I'm assuming this is a future thing, because you're going to have to race there to get there in time. No, actually, if you left right now, you probably wouldn't be there in time if it wasn't a future and a vision of the future. An indescribable anger blazed through me, aimed entirely at Georgine. She had obtained poisons from Lanzanov, manipulated Letizia into using it on Ferdinand, then sent Detlinda to confirm the results. Perhaps it was admirable for a noble to accomplish so much without once having to dirty her own hands, but the only emotion coursing through me was outrage. Mother will give me quite the scolding if I report Letizia's failure to turn you into a Fey Stone, and you do not seem weak enough to die on your own. Detlinda reached down to her hip, and that was when Ferdinand decided to strike. He clenched his arm with a groan, threw several magic tools he had taken from his belt. Barely a moment later, his staff was firmly in his hand. Detlinda shrieked as an explosion swallowed her and Ferdinand both. The shockwave blew her back a little, but otherwise she was completely unaffected. The magic tools that had once turned the tide in the dinner game against Highshits were nothing to her silver shawl. As expected, Ferdinand muttered. Goodness, how violent. What'd you expect, dude? You just tried to kill him. Of course he's gonna fight back. Incensed, Detlinda took something from her belt and popped it into her mouth. One of the Lanzanov sweets Letizia had given me. From what I could tell, she rolled it around on her tongue, then grabbed a bag filled with the powder and tossed it at Ferdinand. Stop. Ferdinand twisted his body as best he could to avoid the attack, but it was no use. The bag struck the floor beside him, then burst into an all-consuming cloud. Oh, it's poison! His posture crumbled and he collapsed in a heap. The hand gripping his chest slowly loosened and went limp. Only his light golden eyes remained firm, glaring intensely at Detlinda even as his other features went rigid. The instant death poison did not work on you for some reason, but this appears to be doing the trick. How strange. Detlinda took out the bracelets used to steal the staffs of criminals, then reached down to put them on Ferdinand. The instant she touched his limp wrist, however, there was a tremendous crack. Detlinda's hand was blown back by a burst of rainbow light. She stared at her fingers for a moment, then glared at Ferdinand and tried again, this time wrapping her hands around her inner silver shawl. The Faystone-like bracelets were connected with a chain. There. Now you will not pose a threat to anyone, even if you do regain control of your body. Next, Detlinda moved out of her captive's hands, one of her captive's hands on the magic circle used when offering mana. A fragile woman such as I would never hope to carry you out of here, she said. Continue to channel your mind to the Foundation until your vessel is empty. My sister, the Ob, will surely appreciate it. She crouched down by the center of the circle and activated it. Ferdinand would continue to have his mana drained until at last he managed to move his hand away. I wonder, how long will it be before your mana runs dry? I do hope I can obtain the Grutschite before then, Detlinda said. She then strolled out of the hall, wearing the bright expression of someone who had just completed a good day's work. Even once Detlinda was gone, the magic circle continued to drain Ferdinand, and must have been sucking mana out of the charm I'd given him, too. The rainbow light surrounding him began to fade, as did the glimmer in his golden eyes. Gone were the hatred and anger. Now they stared vacantly in the distance. Don't give up, not now, I screamed. But the world around me had changed. I was back in the archducal feeding room, and everyone was gathered around me with looks of worry on their faces. Ferdinand was nowhere to be seen, nor was the magic circle draining his mana. Either that is a vision of the future, or, let's see. It has to be a vision of the future, because even if you raced out of there right now, going full speed on your high beast, and somehow got into Arensbach, you might not get there in time. Okay, I'll get to... Wait, it's only 35 minutes? That was only 35 minutes. How much do I have left? Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, these were kind of short ones. Okay. Temptation. Rosemont, what was that? Sylvester asked in a hurry. You shone with rainbow light, then went completely still. That explained why everyone was surrounding me, but we didn't have time. Sylvester, Ferdinand needs us, I cried. He's dying in Ahrensbach. Lady Georgine manipulated someone to poison him. Then Lady Ditland threw this powder that made him collapse. I stood up and tried to hurry out of the room, but I couldn't reach the door. Everyone was blocking my way. Sylvester was even grabbing my arm. Let go of me, I cried. Calm down, your explanation doesn't tell us anything. Sylvester put his hands on my shoulders and urged me to sit down. How did Ferdinand get poisoned? Do you have any idea how we can save him? All of a sudden, I was being bombarded with questions about what I'd seen. Not just from Sylvester, but from Florencia and Bonifacius too. I pushed down the voices telling me to run, and did my very best to oblige them. No matter what I decided to do next, I wouldn't be able to do it alone. So in short, Georgine's invasion is imminent, Bonifacius finally said. We must accelerate our plans. How can you focus on her at a time like this? I snapped. Ferdinand needs our... Give up on him, Rosamund. He cannot be saved. He was poisoned in another duchy's man of replenishment hall. It is already on the verge of death. Right now, our top priority is Ehrenfest's foundation. Do not forget that. You want me to give up on him? And besides, like I said, we don't even know if that was right then and there. That could have been a future thing. I clenched my fists, feeling my blood start to boil. Boniface was watching me through stern blue eyes. You need to protect Ehrenfest. You promised when Ferdinand moved. He was right. I really had made that promise. And to Ferdinand of all people, Ehrenfest was also home to the Gutenbergs, everyone in the temple, and my family in the lower city. I needed to protect them. But at the same time, I'd also promised to protect Ferdinand. I wasn't about to abandon him. In the first place, how do you intend to enter another duchy's man of replenishment hall? Boniface asked. And do you know how many days it would take us to reach Ahrensbach? Ferdinand only has so much mana. We could depart now and still not arrive in time. That's what I'm saying. Focusing on Georgine is the obvious choice. I stroked Ahrensbach's key. Georgine wanted to steal our foundation, but what was stopping me from taking hers? I could use our own plan against her. But say we could get there in time, I said. Would we be able to save him? I could feel the intensity of my stare and the mana coursing through my body. Everyone around me gasped and started muttering about empty face stones, but I paid them no mind. Instead, I repeated my question. Would we be able to save him? Bonifacius grimaced and suddenly recoiled. I might have started crushing him by accident. I started to be more careful, but I wasn't going to back down. If I can reach Ferdinand before his mana runs out, will you and Sylvester help me? I asked. I don't care if I antagonize him to Ahrensbach, the Sovereignty, the Zent, or even Wehrman. I will not give up on him. Bonifacius said nothing in response. He merely swallowed. I entered the Archducal family to protect the people I care about. My own status and authority wasn't enough. In the same sense, I've only agreed to join the sovereignty so that Ferdinand won't be deemed guilty by association. If we let him die, I won't have a reason to go along with the adoption. As long as the people I cared about were safe, I didn't care if our entire country collapsed. Ferdinand and my lower city family meant so much to me, more to me than Jürgen Schmidt, so I wasn't going to let any of them die for its sake. Rosamund, are you sane? You do all this for one man? It doesn't surprise me that you don't understand. I care about Ehrenfest more than Jürgen Schmidt and about my family more than Ehrenfest. In fact, last, someone spoke up in my defense. Look, she knows what she's on about. If she has a way to save him, we should support her. Wilfried, Bonifacius explained. We weren't even sure she was going to be here during the attack, so she isn't involved in any of our plans. I don't see a reason why she can't take her retainers and go. In fact, if you ask me, keeping her here when her mana is about to explode poses a much greater threat to Ehrenfest's security. He turned to me and pointed at his eyes, indicating that the color of mine was changing. Rosamund might be moving to the sovereignty, but she's still an Ehrenfest Archduke candidate, Bonifacius protested, clearly stunned. This is equivalent to us invading Ahrensbach. So? They're already obviously targeting our foundation, which means we have every right to retaliate. Ahrensbach needs its foundation as much as we need ours, right? I say we crush them before they can crush us. Sylvester stroked his chin, amused. Rosamund, do you have a plan to save him? I do. I'm the only one who can enact it, but your assistance will make things so much easier. Can I count on you, Sylvester? Despite being an Archduke, Sylvester had refused to give the order for Ferdinand to assassinate Georgine. He had put his brother's future above the safety of his duchy. There wasn't a doubt in my mind that he would agree to help me. Sylvester's lips curved into a grin. We're on the same page. The problem is that you're still associated with Ehrenfest. Your decision to steal another duchy won't be received well. So if you're gonna do this, we need an airtight excuse. His dark green eyes said that he would support me as long as I could give everyone our board. Won't it be enough to say that we're rescuing Uncle, Wilfred said. He's still registered with Ehrenfest since the star binding hasn't happened yet. And since he was sent there to marry a temporary Ob, won't his death be in breach of a royal decree? Sylvester shook his head, though he kept his eyes firmly on me. We don't have enough evidence to sway the sovereignty on any of the other duchies. We need an excuse. Think, girls, mind, think. I wrecked my brain for ideas. We need a just cause for invading Ahrensbach. This is the one thing keeping me from rushing to save Ferdinand. Ahrensbach is welcoming Lanzanov envoys as part of a scheme to depose the Zent, I said. Lady Ditlinde has no desire to cooperate with the royal family's search for the Gruderscheid. Instead, she plans to claim it, take the throne, and make Leonzio of Lanzanov her consort. In isolation, Ditlinde obtaining the Gruderscheid wouldn't have been a major problem. As was clear from my current situation, there was nothing wrong with an outsider delivering the book to the royal family. I suspected that they would have cancelled her engagement to Ferdinand and married her to Siswald to minimize the risk of any internal strife within Jürgensmith. However, Ahrensbach was making a fatal mistake. To secure the Gruderscheid, it was fraternizing with a foreign country. Ahrensbach's collaboration with Lanzanov is no less heinous than when Eisenreich let Bosges have a word in its ear, I said, wresting an excuse out of thin air. Ehrenfest was born from Eisenreich's fragmentation, so we know better than most the severity of uniting with another country for the sake of stealing the throne. As a Zent's future daughter, of course I want to eliminate Ahrensbach. Rather than criticize my actions, the sovereignty and the rest of the country should praise them. Sylvester smirked. Not bad. There's one glaring issue, though. Ehrenfest is no match for Ahrensbach. We don't even have the manpower to invade them. You and your retainers would need to venture alone into enemy territory. Ahrensbach, which oversaw half of Old Workstock, had an impressive population. Ehrenfest, in contrast, was considered small enough for a middle duchy. There was an obvious disparity in strength. We would struggle even enough just to stay on the defensive and trying to protect our foundation. So be it, I said. Invading with too great a force would only draw attention to us. No, I can't let you go to Ahrensbach without proper reinforcement, Sylvester replied with a frown. Now that you're set to be adopted by the Zent, we need to protect you above all else. How was I to overcome our blatant disadvantage? I paused and thought, then Otto's voice reverberated through my mind. If you're struggling on your own, hire someone to do the work for you. He had once said to me, find someone capable and guide them into doing whatever it is you want of their own volition. If we didn't have enough strength, we would need to source some from elsewhere. And when it came to strength, there was only one duchy in Jürgensmith that immediately came to mind. Sylvester, I said, please contact Dunkelfelger. I wish to extend to them an invitation to play Ditter. They will assist us in saving Ferdinand and smiting Ahrensbach for its treason. Dunkelfelger, you're dragging other duchies into this? Under normal circumstances, a duchy trying to steal a foundation would never request external assistance. It was unsuitable for one thing, or unsustainable for one thing. A duchy that couldn't seize a foundation on its own stood no chance of maintaining it. And working in collaboration increased the odds of additional wars. But we weren't fighting to take Ahrensbach, I just wanted to save Ferdinand. Weakening our enemy would simply be a bonus. If we want to stand a chance against a greater duchy like Ahrensbach, we will need to use everything at our disposal. I said, Dunkelfelger is unmatched when it comes to dinner, right? If we don't make use of that now, we never will. Dunkelfelger and his first wife should agree to lend us their aid as long as we present my excuse, though we could also leverage the royal decree they thrust upon Ferdinand and the Clarissa incident for good measure. All right, come with me, Sylvester conceded. You can do all the negotiating. Florencia Bonifacius take over in my absence. Make sure everyone here is sworn to secrecy. And so I was taken to the Archduke's office. Sylvester spoke to his scholars and asked them to prepare the magic tool used to communicate with other Obs during emergencies. It looked entirely like a worn water mirror. I already knew how it worked as a result of my Archduke candidate lessons, but only Obs could actually use them. Sylvester connected with Dunkelfelger's tool, and a scholar on the other end summoned the Archduke. Dunkelfelger, I said, good day to you. Ehrenfest and Lady Rosemine, I thought you were unwell. Just what is going on here? Long story. Just as we could see the Ob in the water, he must have been able to see us. He was staring in shock at my new mature form. I cleared my throat and said, we are here to discuss a matter of grave importance. Of course, the most noble excuse took precedence, so I opened with an outline of the threat facing Jürgensmith. Ahrensbach had joined forces with the foreign country and was planning an attack on the sovereignty. As one of the duchies that used to be Eisenreich, Ehrenfest knows the danger of treason better than at most, Sylvester added in support of me. His expression hard and serious. Thus, we are requesting the aid of a greater duchy to protect the royal family. Georgine believed she was acting in secret, so she could never have predicted that we would turn to greater duchies and the sovereignty to protect our foundation. The groundwork we laid today could play a crucial role in diplomacy moving forward. Moreover, I said, Trug has been used twice within the Sovereign Knights Order. We find ourselves reluctant to rely on them, which is why we instead turn to a greater duchy that has pledged to support the royal family. We planned to warn the royals as well, but it was hard to say whether we could trust the Sovereign Knights Order. Dunkelfelger had experienced both the dinner interruption and the incident during Ahrensbach's funeral, So rather than dismissing our claims as nonsense, the Ob simply nodded. I continued, this is a more personal matter, but I must ask that you send knights to Arensbach as well as the sovereignty. The Ob blinked at me and then said, for what purpose? To put it simply, I wish to invite your entire duchy to play dinner. A smile spread across my lips. Would your knights be interested in the true game? A true game of treasure-stealing dinner. Foundations at stake. That'll tickle their pickle. A true game, so there are foundations at stake. Indeed, I replied, it was nice to speak with someone who had good instincts. It made things so much easier. A large-scale dinner match between Ehrenfest and Arensbach is about to begin. As you can imagine, our duchies are far from balanced in terms of manpower. So we cordially invite you to join us. One cannot speak about dinner without thinking of your duchy. I gave a refined chuckle as I watched the Ob through the water. My request had rendered him speechless. Ehrenfest will protect its own foundation, I explained. Meanwhile, I should take a small group to claim Arensbach. I would appreciate your support in this endeavor. Everyone knows that your duchy is the strongest ally one can wish for. I could tell the Ob was wavering. Wearing a broad smile, I continued to push, waiting for him to crack. Given the current political climate, I would venture that not even Dunkelfegger has participated in a dinner match with foundations on the line. Have you never wished to experience one? Said this is going to be a true dinner match with Arensfest and Arensbach as the playing fields. I can promise the most exciting battle you have ever experienced. Far greater than any mere game. Do you know what I mean, Ob Dunkelfegger? Can't you think of anyone who might wish to join me in attacking Arensbach's foundation? Despite his wavering heart, the Ob shook his head. Only knights would agree to join a war between other duchies. Nobody else. Only knights, huh? That was somewhat exasperating, but also convenient. So excitement is not enough to convince you, I said with a smile. I suspect you need a reason to join the fray. At once the Ob leaned closer. Do you have one for us? His eyes were so hopeful that I couldn't help but grin. Revealing these circumstances will turn our humble request into blackmail, so I was hoping to convince you through your passion for dinner alone. But I suppose I do not have a choice. Forgive me for what I'm about to say. I cast my eyes down, trying to look as sad as possible, and said, though I cannot elaborate at this moment in time, Ferdinand is poisoned and paralyzed in Arensbach's manor replenishment hall. He is dying at the hands of none other than his own fiancée, Lady Detlinde, and my intention is to save him, no matter the cost. He's what? Only by taking over Arensbach's foundation can we rescue him. Your duchy came together once already to free him from Ehrenfest's temple. I assume it will unite again to save his life. Not a soul will dispute this opportunity to right our past wrongs. Very well, Lady Rosemary, we shall participate in your foundation-stealing match against Arensbach. He's smiling. He's actually smiling. Oh, Dunkelfegger, it might be wise to take a step back and evaluate your priorities. Oh, God. Okay, I'm gonna probably... Yeah, I'm gonna end this one off here. Next one is gonna probably be... It's either gonna be a short one or a long one. I'm not sure. If it's gonna be a short one, it's gonna be 2 short ones. And if not, it's going to be 1 long one. So I will see you guys in the next one.